Welcome to the Across the Bar podcast, where we talk about why today's headlines are important to your success at work. My name is Peter Raybar. I'm your first call on legal issues.
I'm Laura Brownstein. I am your first call on content and comms. And how are you, Peter?
Doing great. We're in the thick of summer. It seems to be hot and humid everywhere, no matter what city you're in the U.S.
But it's not the heat wave that we had last week.
Yeah, that was a different story.
And everyone, Peter and I are recording this at 4:30 on a summer Friday, so
cheers.
A little ASMR ice action for those of you listening. That is my Friday end of week cocktail. I'm doing Tito's with celery bitters, which is my new favorite drink.
Yeah, I think you had that last week.
Yeah, savory, not sweet.
I'm having a beer. There's no ice in the can, thankfully. Although I was out with a friend the other night who was trying to sell everyone at the table on the merits of beer served over ice in a glass.
With anything in it?
No one was a lime. No one was really going for it. Not appealing to me.
What, is it a specific, does he put lime in?
Yeah. I don't know. Are you the type that puts ice in your wine?
I do. I like but I don't in my beer.
Yeah.
I guess
so,
watery
I have a
beer
lot of,
but watery beer sounds disgusting, whereas a little water in the wine is fine.
But you know what else is disgusting? Warm beer. Totally disgusting.
Warm beer is the worst.
Yeah. But I think totally acceptable to put an ice cube in a rosé or certain types of white wine over the summer. Okay to have a chilled red, but not put an ice cube in
I love a chilled red in the summer.
Those are my...
If you grill, you know what one of the best things in the world is? And then we'll get to all of the legal and business news. A grilled steak in the summer with a chilled Lambrusco.
Perfect.
Right?
Perfect.
How good is that?
Yeah.
Like a little
Great.
chilled little sparkle red with a steak on the grill, summer corn, summer tomatoes. Best dinner ever.
There you go.
All right.
Perfect.
What time are you
Perfect
coming
meal.
over? I'm going to fire up the grill, Peter.
All right. I'm ready. I'll be right there. I'll be there in 4 hours.
Okay, good. All right. So we have, it is the post 4th of July week, and there is lots of interesting, fun news to talk about.
People are still working, amazingly.
Yeah, people are working, and there is a big switcheroo on the whole AI stealing jobs situation. Goldman just made a new edict for their analysts and employees that we'll talk about. We'll talk about whether or not you should hook up with a coworker and what kind of boss is most likely to want you to come back to the office, according to Adam Grant and others, and how to write a goodbye email for your internship or job. You ready?
And thank you notes. Yeah.
Slash thank you. Same.
Okay.
Peter,
I'm ready.
Jobs, right?
That's right.
Do you write thank you notes to clients when they end your project? Are you like, Laura?
Well,
nice
usually
part of your layoff from WeWork. This was
I
a
do
hard moment, and I'm glad I was there.
I mean, I do at times do that. Depending on the situation, but most often clients send thank you notes to me. So I have a folder where I keep all these thank you notes because they're very meaningful.
Do you look back at them when you're having a bad day ever?
I actually look at them when I'm having a good day, and it's affirming. Well, it's great. It's one of the great aspects of my job is that the people I work with, we have great relationships and they're very grateful. And it's one of the
But I would want to read past letters when I'm having a bad day to remind me that everything can be good.
Yeah, sometimes that happens. But I mean, one of my pet peeves of corporate life was that people don't say thank you enough, and they're not expressive of that in the way that my clients are in this practice. So.
You have good clients. And you do good work.
I have great
clients.
clients.
Been a client of yours.
Elite clients at the Raybar Group.
Exactly. Okay. So it seems that we are adding jobs, not losing jobs due to AI. And that's happening in multiple sectors. It's a switcheroo on what they expected. What do you think of that?
I think it's true. And there's a couple stories that are sort of came together under this umbrella topic. First there was a story in the Wall Street Journal about how the big AI firms are shifting their narrative language. This is your area, right? About how they talk about AI and the impact it's having on work. So they've gone from the doomsday of AI is going to replace all your jobs to no, it's going to add jobs, it's going to make your jobs more efficient. And I think part of so that's one thing. And then there's an article this week in the development that Anthropic has basically leased a whole building in Hudson Square in New York, and they're adding about 1,000 jobs. This is just a few weeks after OpenAI leased a whole building in Soho.
Call me.
Yeah, and if
Anthropic needs an in-house podcast that you and I should host, Peter.
They definitely should right? Ask us to do that. OpenAI or Anthropic, let's go. But so these stories made some headlines, and obviously, these AI companies suffered a huge backlash wave when they, went out very publicly with their job replacement theories, and people weren't happy about that, obviously. Whether you're a young worker just entering your career, you don't want to hear that, or someone who's worried about your job security later in your career, like you don't want to hear any of these things. And the reality is, like I've been saying on this podcast,
true, or do we think the AI companies are just like, hey, people, stop? You have long said, Peter, that people are attributing layoffs to AI that are not actually due to AI because right. It is a sexy reason for layoffs.
Well,
do you think that is what's happening?
Yeah, I do. I still haven't, seen like credible reports of large amounts of jobs being replaced by AI. I mean, are there jobs being replaced here and there? Yes. Are there jobs being supplemented in other places with AI? Yes. Are there new jobs being created to manage and use and teach others how to use AI?
No, one of the articles,
yes.
which is not covering directly, that I read is that there is a huge need for the electricians and construction and other skilled laborers for data centers, which I think is so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the data centers are, that's like, I think, sort of a mirage because...
data, I say data, tomato, tomato, sorry.
There you go. Singing 2 weeks in a row, you got it.
Did I sing last week too?
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay. Everybody likes it.
Did our listenership drop off precipitously?
No, actually, last week was a really good week for us, by the way. FYI. Yeah, so there you go.
Wait, how many listeners did we have last week?
We don't reveal those numbers publicly.
Right?
We're going to keep
the 5,000? Yes, Steve. Okay.
But the data center jobs come and go, right? All the jobs are involved in the construction, and then there's nothing. I mean, there's no ongoing maintenance. It's very minimal. So those jobs are not that important. But go look at OpenAI or Anthropic's jobs page. There's dozens and dozens or hundreds of jobs that they're looking to fill. I've been involved, frankly, in New York with a lot of
hiring
candidates.
Contracts?
Yeah, candidates going to these AI companies.
All right, let's get into this for a second. What are these companies like to negotiate with for your clients for good contracts? That's interesting.
I mean, for my clients, they're great because they have
they're your
giant
clients.
wallets. For the competition, they're horrible. I mean, and I see, big companies, including hedge funds and finance institutions, non-tech companies even, trying to take steps now to protect their, workers from going to these AI firms and claiming that they're somehow competitive, which is a real stretch. And so other companies are scared. They don't like it. And if you've,
do you think this is going to drive up salaries in the
absolutely
business? That's great.
Absolutely. I've already seen it. I mean, I've seen some eye-popping, numbers for kids who graduated college just a couple of months ago.
Let's put a pin in that for you and I to discuss my career options after this. Okay.
You got it.
So you think, so there are a lot of things showing as I've said to you, I am an AI optimist. And I think we can all be AI optimists in terms of jobs in the short term. We don't know what's happening in the long term, but in the short term, it does seem like it's creating jobs.
I would agree with that. Anecdotally, I do see that. My concern with AI is around guardrails and smart regulation, and I think corporate leaders are starting to speak up about that. The federal government sort of fumbling over itself to try and do it. But I don't know if you watched Alex Karp's rant on CNBC last week, the CEO of Palantir. But basically what he said is other companies are pissed at these frontier AI models for basically stealing all their IP and, overcharging them for tokens.
Guy?
Yeah, it's crazy. It was a crazy interview with Andrew Ross Sorkin. It was, shocking to a lot of people in the industry that he would say these things, given that he's shocking? A partner. It was shocking that he said, other companies think these AI companies are fleecing them, basically, that they're stealing their IP, they're overcharging them for tokens, and they're tired of it. They want more protections, and that's why they're going to, companies like Palantir to create overlay models to protect their actual IP and data. So that doesn't
It's interesting, as we've discussed, I'm the AI optimist of our duo, and I use it for research a ton, but more and more sites are not letting AI scrape them, which I get because they don't make any money on it.
Right, yeah. Try and tell Claude to view a YouTube video. It won't, can't.
It can't, but
right. Gemini can. Yep.
And Notebook can.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
So the narrative's shifting, and I'm sure it'll shift again, and again and again.
Shift again. Okay.
Here we are.
We have talked a lot about the prediction market, and Goldman just made a rule. Goldman Sachs, the New York City investment bank, just made a rule that their employees can't use it at all or can't use it on anything related to work. What's the rule, Peter?
Goldman passed a policy that said that its employees cannot use prediction markets for anything other than sports or entertainment. So they drew some lines. Other firms, some hedge funds, Point72 and Balyasny, which are two major hedge funds, have introduced complete bans on use of predictive markets. They don't want to get into the line drawing exercise. I think that's going to be the trend, frankly, is companies will move more towards that.
But you and I think they must be listening to Across the Bar, because you and I have talked a lot about if you are not putting out directive for your employees, you're missing the boat.
Right. I mean, we talked about it a few weeks ago when one of the platforms, Polymarket, actually was going to ask users where they worked for certain of the contracts.
Right.
To make sure there wasn't insider trading. Now this is the company saying, which is where I think it really should be, the company saying, hey, if you work here, you can't, you can't use these at all, or you can't use it for anything other than sports and entertainment. Earlier this year, JP Morgan told its employees, you need to think carefully about what you use it for. I'm sure they'll go up to this next level too. It's the right move, frankly. I if I were a company, I wouldn't want to spend my time, chasing someone's bets to see if they were sports or entertainment or something else. And plus, plenty of these companies these banks in particular, they're very involved in sports and entertainment.
Yeah.
Whether whether it's the deals.
No, if you're
or
a
the
company
athletes.
like Goldman, if I was a client for someone, I have been a corporate client for Goldman several times in my career. And I can say they are super professional and you pay a super amount of money. And if I thought any of the employees, like when I was doing the WeWork IPO, if there at that time had been a Polymarket and I thought any of those bankers were betting on whether the IPO would happen, my God, I would have lost my mind.
Yeah.
And that is actually a perfect example of what could have happened. Like if the WeWork IPO was happening now, the prediction markets would have been all aflutter, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I don't think the sports, fence will last. I mean, JP Morgan has a huge sports division. Goldman Sachs has many sports clients and dealings. I think it'll just fall to the complete ban, and that's that. And, if you're an employee, there's no way you should risk your job over one of these stupid bets.
All right, now we're going to talk about one of my favorite things to tell people that they should do at work. There was an editorial or an op-ed in the Times this week that said, hook up with your coworkers. Peter, did you read this article?
Sure did.
What did it say? What was its recommendation?
Well, it was an op-ed written by Juno Kelly saying that, there's not enough dating going on in the workplace these days. And that,
there's not enough dating going on in general. You and I have talked about that before. Like, the kids are home and scrolling, not out.
Look, June and July, I think we may be starting a new trend here. Everyone wants to be together, IRL, watching sports, doing other things.
I do think the World Cup and the Knicks make people see what's great.
Yeah, look at you. You even sound like a sports fan right now. That's how far we've come.
I said to my boyfriend today on the way out, I was like, this is a little preview for later. I was like, what should my hero be this week? He was like, obviously something related to the World Cup. I was like, that's Peter's area, really, not for me.
Yeah, right. The op-ed...
What was the Times op-ed perspective? Like, what... Obviously, I think that if you are engaged with your career, you're probably spending a lot of time at work. And why wouldn't you want to hook up with someone who is engaged by the same things you are, right?
Well, yeah. As you might imagine, I'm totally against this idea.
Okay.
But it was pitched as a...
brilliant, amazingly impressive wife at law school, which is kind of the same thing as me and someone at work.
Well, interestingly, we did work together at the same place for our summer associate year.
We were already together?
Yeah, we were already together. But frankly,
did you
it was
disclose it, or were you like secret squirrels?
No, we disclosed it, but not like we didn't send out an announcement or anything. But it was
Did
was
you
awkward.
tell the firm?
It was no, not when they hired us. We just told people on an as needed basis.
It must have been fun that you guys did that together for a summer.
It was fun, but it was awkward, and I don't think people should do it, frankly. And the stats were, yeah.
You
the
don't
stats.
think people should wait? Oh, I didn't realize this. You don't think people should hook up at work?
No. Hook up with anyone else you want other than someone at work.
We spend all of our time at work. I think that's silly.
Okay, you're entitled to that opinion, and this article, cites that 40% of relationships that start at work lead to marriage. That's great, and that in the last year, only 16% of U.S. workers went on a date with a colleague, compared to 40% in 2009.
Jesus.
I don't think it's a good idea. There's plenty of other people in the world. You don't have to introduce these issues.
Engaging with other humans as regularly. The humans you engage with probably are the ones that you work with.
Yeah.
You hate those, Peter.
Look, the op-ed does blame people like me and other, employment lawyers and HR people who introduce sexual harassment training and these other concepts that sort of tell you not to do these things. That's fine. But we didn't break modern dating. I'm not going to take that responsibility. I didn't do that.
Yeah, corporate lawyers broke modern dating, people.
I didn't do that. That's not my fault.
I will say, when everyone knows I was an editor at Cosmo for years, and I would say the beginning of the time I worked there, they were still, and I spent most of my career in women's magazines, and we used to do stories all the time about, your coworkers are not your friends. Don't date your coworkers. And then at some point, there was a sea change that I really believed in that was actually, the people that are intellectual equals, your matches, who are interested in what you're interested in, those are probably the people you want to spend time with. That's cool.
Yeah, but what about people going out and finding
close friends as an adult? Most of my close friends as an adult were from the workplace.
Sure, but what about going out and joining a sports league or a book club or a social club or whatever? Whatever your interest is, go do it. You'll meet people that way too.
70 hours a week at work.
By the way,
to think.
But by the way, there was also articles recently that say people are actually, finding or starting to date because of relationships they form at the gym or at fitness classes. There are ways to meet people other than work. Why does it have to be at work where it just creates a whole host of issues for your
All right.
colleagues and coworkers.
If listeners, we would love to hear your take on this because we have a fundamental disagreement on it, and I would love to hear what other people think.
I think maybe we need to put like one of those Instagram
Polls?
sticker polls on our post this week.
I love a poll. I love a good
How
poll.
about that?
Okay, maybe we should do that with our post.
Yep.
Okay.
That'll settle it.
One of my favorite recent articles, there was a piece by Adam Grant that talked about the fact that CEOs and bosses that want people to come to the office tend to have narcissistic personality traits. And that resonates for me hard. What do you think of that, Peter?
Yeah, me too. I mean, I've had discussions with people where I've really pressed them on this issue. And I would say 9 times out of 10, I really have a hard time getting legitimate answers out of people that don't lead back to this. And I'm not saying everybody who wants their employees in the office is a narcissist necessarily.
Many are, though.
But I think they just want control. They just want to make the rules.
They want control, and they want acolytes near them.
Yeah.
I would always tell my team when I was in Magazine Land that or anywhere actually, when a boss is on their way home from a family vacation, they will always be their worst boss self because they have just spent a week or a weekend or whatever with people telling them, their children and spouse being like, no, I don't want to do that. No.
That's amazing.
And then they're like, you know what? I'm going to go back to work and tell people what to do and they'll listen. I deeply believe, like any boss when they're on their way back from a family vacation is their worst boss self, honestly.
So like they're in the car driving back thinking of all the ways they're going to torture their colleagues when they get back to the office.
They just want someone to do what they say. All right, boss. This is one of my favorite.
Get it off your chest, Laura. Come on, let's go.
Why I left corporate life for a minute. It was New Year's Eve day. I was on a boat off the coast of Florida, and my job was in no way to write the CEO's emails. And I got an email that was like, I can't believe you haven't written a New Year's message for me. You need to do this right now. And I was like, bitch, I'm on a boat off the coast of wherever. And she was like, I've had an exhausting 24 hours traveling back from the Amman in the Middle East I was staying at. And it was just like,
Yeah, look, that's an amazing story, by the way. But part of it is just like, you need people around so that they're there if you want them to be, so that you can see that they're actually working, because maybe you don't trust everyone, even though you should. I mean, to me, I've always felt like if you can't trust someone, then why'd you hire them?
Yeah,
okay.
I trust Peter.
Thank you.
Thank you. We haven't hired each other, but I
have
hired Peter when he was my lawyer, but now we're just
colleagues.
Okay.
Yeah.
Colleagues.
Coworkers.
Okay.
But yeah, it usually comes back to, I just want them there, and it's because I can.
I just want to see them. Yeah.
And one of the things COVID did, one of the many things COVID did, was really, piss off elites and people in power who were told that they could not make the rules anymore, or at least for a short period of time. They really didn't like being told what to do, where they could go, where their employees had to be. They didn't like that at all, whether it was being told by the government or whether it was being told by the employees themselves. They didn't like that. We saw a huge snapback to that. And we see moments of the snapback to that. We happen to have a president in power who sort of believes in this philosophy, and a lot of corporate leaders thought they could just flow off of him.
Let's talk about the goodbye email. So, I have had a lot of jobs because I worked up until the last 5 years. I've worked for other people, whereas you started your own business much earlier. And I've written a lot of goodbye emails and read a lot of goodbye emails. And there is a way to do it that works, where you honor the people that you worked with and give them a reason to want to stay connected to you. And I think there's a special dance to it, especially for interns. Tell me what your perspective on this is, Peter.
Well, I think for interns, because we're in the middle of intern season right now, and we were talking about goodbyes and also thank you notes. I mean, I think actually thank you notes are much more important for interns than a goodbye message. Like, I frankly don't think an intern needs to send like a broadcast.
So I'm going to say something that you and I will disagree with.
Great, here we go again. Okay.
Saying always send it via email, so you open up an email pathway with the person. Like, yes. It's nice to write a letter, but the interns I have hired after their internship were ones that opened up an email pathway immediately.
But all I'm saying is what's more effective for an intern is targeted, individualized thank you notes sent via email to the people who are most important to you over the summer.
This is not a handwriting moment. You want to have a digital connection with the person.
Right. So I would say addressed individually for interns. This is for interns. Addressed individually, thanking them for the internship, for the time they spent with you, for the knowledge they shared with you, sharing one thing that was particularly memorable or helpful with them.
Don't make it sound like AI wrote it. Also, it's fine for Claude to draft the first iteration of your letter, but you need to edit the hell out of it.
I would go the opposite. I would write it first and then have Claude edit, but
same.
Whatever. Tomato.
All right.
But share something that was particularly memorable, impactful, whatever it is. Thank them, and then say that you would love the opportunity to continue working with them in the future, staying in touch in the future, and have a proper, sign off. And you write one for each person who had an impact on you. Don't write to
Don't send a group email. Oh my God.
Don't send a group email. Right.
All right, let's do our heroes and zeros.
Okay, so we agreed on that. There you go. That was so easy. So easy.
Who's your zero, Peter?
Who's my zero? I go first, huh? As you may know, earlier this week, the U.S. Soccer team suffered a loss and exit from the World Cup at the hands of Belgium. And part of the postmortem has focused on the state of U.S. youth soccer development and youth soccer or youth sports in general in the U.S. And frankly, our system is a pay-to-play system that is not competitive internationally. Other countries either have federally funded or free systems where they develop youth to be dominant in sports like soccer.
Has not been a big deal in America until recently.
Yeah, but it's the biggest sport in the world. And it's a big deal, as you can see with this World Cup, which is like, having, 60 Super Bowls in 1 month. Yeah. It's incredible. It's an incredible spectacle. It's an incredibly important sport. And we keep talking about how we want to be competitive. If we want to be competitive, we need to reform youth sports in America, which means providing more opportunities at lower to no cost for youth, because by charging $10,000 to join a soccer travel team, we're just excluding huge swaths of our population. And by contrast, one of the most popular players in this tournament, Erling Haaland from Norway, his town experimented with a free soccer model where they literally built a dome in the middle of their town and just let kids go play and practice all day.
That's so great.
He's one of the greatest players in the world now. So that's a zero for the U.S. And unfortunately, it's going in the wrong direction because now private equity is getting involved in youth sports. And I think that's a huge danger. Huge.
Agreed. I'm
Who's your
going
zero?
To do a zero that is usually more your purview, but the restarting of the war in the Gulf, war with Iran, just seems like we are not playing chess here. That we're
surprised
by
that.
Other people are playing chess. Like, what is happening? That like.
Do you think we're even playing? I mean, we're sort of acting like, someone who's like distracted by something else and just occasionally makes a move when someone yells at them.
What like distracted by like a reflecting pond kind of thing?
No, I don't know. Could be anything.
I think what a travesty how poorly our foreign relations are being handled right now. This is not how you do things. That like, well, maybe there's a ceasefire. Maybe there isn't. What a mess.
Yeah. Guess what? Iran knows it too.
This is a comms mess. This is a humanitarian disaster, obviously, but also the way we are communicating this to the American people, the way our government is, that's sort of like, I don't know. Seems like we're at war again. What? It's terrible. If you have a family member member in the military, and you're hearing our president, our commander-in-chief, talk about this in such like, well, yeah, it seems like it's happening again. What? That's terrible.
It's unbelievable.
God. And the people of Iran...
And there's lives on the line. I mean, this
the
isn't
Persian
just cause.
good people in Iran who are just suffering every day. This is heartbreaking.
Yeah. How about the people in the military who've been, just on these tours endlessly with no end in sight, really?
Yeah.
I mean, this could be a forever war.
Anyway.
Or an even greater humiliation.
This idiot.
Tell us
All
how
right,
you
heroes.
really feel. All right, who's your hero?
My hero is Jenny Rakakot. I am not sure if I'm saying her name right, but the woman who came forward and talked about her assault by Graham Plattner, even though it went against her political ideology. She supported much of what he did politically, but she still said, this is a bad guy. And numbers prove that people, but it's usually men, who are violent towards an intimate partner are much more likely to commit other violent acts. And our society at the moment seems to be saying like, oh, a little misogynist, a little anti-Semitic, game on, you seem great. And this was a wonderful moment of, what a brave woman that came forward and said this. And, what not winners the Graham Plattner team was that thought it was a great idea for his concession speech to be angry at the people he blamed. But you know what? It is not easy for women to come forward. Go, woman in Maine that came forward about Graham Plattner.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it all very brave of her.
Yeah.
Also, it highlights people want to make this a Democratic issue, but I think it's across parties. It highlights just how poor the candidates are who are running for office these days and the systems that prevent.
It's a terrible, part of me thinks we have made it so hard for people to be in office and be safe. Of course, we're not getting the best.
It's not just that. I mean, when you look in Maine, they literally had to go find this guy and convince him to run. That's Maine, right? Like, you can't even find someone to run. Then you contrast that with New York, where we have this
week. It seems like a lot of people are like, I want to run.
Well, yeah, but they're all sort of people have been.
Oh, I could take the mantle.
Yeah, but they're all people who've already been rejected. I mean, these are not cream of the crop candidates. No. And then you can contrast that with New York, where we have a closed primary system, and you can't run unless you come through the machine. And look at what's coming through the machine. A bunch of lunatics. And when the mayor was asked about it,
Daria Liza was going to be my zero. The woman that just was elected to office in New York, who thinks that there should be no penal system in the U.S.
Right. Yeah, it's a beautiful idea. Great.
Jesus. All right, who's your zero?
But
a hero.
Yeah.
Hero.
Yeah. So anyway, I would like to see open primary systems. I would like to see it easier for people to run, not harder.
There's a lot of movements heading that way. It'll be interesting to see.
The mayor was asked about it this week, and he said the closed primary system is just fine in New York. I totally disagree. My hero.
DSA candidates. If we had an open primary system, there would be no DSA candidates like Mamdani elected. I think. Right.
So my hero is The Bear, which just concluded its final season. And people could debate whether it was a good final season or not. I'm not going to spoil it in any way. I will just say I thought it was great. And it's a show. I mean, I love food. Everyone knows I love food. I love restaurants. I love the industry. My dad owned a restaurant. My first job was in a restaurant. Of course, I never worked in a Michelin-starred restaurant. But look, it's a show about relationships. Yeah, definitely. It's a show about relationships. It's a show about family. It's also incredible moments, incredible characters.
The last season is a lot about where can you shine and how can you embrace that. And where someone else shines might not be where you shine.
Yeah. And look, I mean, there was some good workplace lessons in there about,
The important
turning over responsibility when you don't feel like you
platonic
could use it well.
male-female friendships. Like,
I
one
knew
of
you
the
were gonna
things
say
I
that.
loved about The Bear is the workplace platonic relationships between the sexes were gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, kudos to that show. I'm
Kudos.
gonna miss it. I think they had one bad season, but you know,
Yeah.
it was overall pretty great, and
All right. Cheers
everyone
to
should
that.
watch it. Yeah. All right.
Here. This was a
We
great
made it.
conversation.
Great conversation. Thanks for making it happen, everybody. Thank you, Sadie.
Thank you, Sadie Raybar.
Thanks everyone for watching, listening. Please subscribe,
Bye-bye.
share, and we'll see you next week.